If you want to see the hard evidence on if capitalism or socialism is better for a nation, look no further than China. China was taken over by a communist party under Mao Zedong, and they implemented a socialist economy. But eventually the economy was reformed and became much more capitalist. Historian Rainer Ziedemann covers this story extensively in his book, The Power of Capitalism. Let's go over it briefly. After the communists took over, they focused on nationalizing and collectivizing almost everything they could. And this didn't stop at the farms and the factories. It went as far as taking people's homes. The people were put under a strict totalitarian rule, and nothing mattered more to Mao than building the socialist economy. He viewed the people as slaves. He even wanted to replace their names with numbers. Because of the collectivization of agriculture and other things like Mao's sanctioned killing of sparrows, the people began to run out of food, and they experienced one of the worst famines, if not the worst famine in human history. Some estimates say around 32.5 million people starved to death. When Mao died in 1976, around 90% of the population was in extreme poverty. The people were hungry, they were miserable. The new leader, Deng Xiaoping, began traveling to other nations, and he saw that they were much more successful than China. They didn't have the same poverty and hunger that China did. This made him realize the necessity of a capitalist system. Private farming was unbanned in 1982. These reforms were incredibly successful. Agricultural output increased rapidly. People finally had food again. But even prior to that, many farmers were just not following the law. In one famous example, 18 farmers in a village created a secret pact where they would divide the collective farm into private plots. They did this at risk of death, but when the government found out, they couldn't really punish the people because they were so successful. So this was replicated over and over and over again, so the country saw a bottom-up reform. In October of 1992, there was finally an official proclamation that China had a market economy. By this time, extreme poverty had gone from 90 to around 20%. The percentage of intermediate goods transacted at market prices rose from 0% in 1978 to 46% in 1991 and 78% in 1995. That means most of these goods went from being centrally allocated by the state to being allocated by the market. The results aren't really something you can argue with. In recent years, the extreme poverty rate reached under 1%. But not everything is well. Under Xi Jinping, China has began to turn around and go back the way they came. If you look at the Index of Economic Freedom, China's rating went from 59.5% in 2020 to 48.3% in 2023. China is now doing more central planning and nationalizing more businesses. And with that, it's slowed down. Their economy was slowing down even before the pandemic. China's rise to prominence and the successes that they did had came entirely from the introduction of private property. This is the biggest mistake they could possibly make. But it's also further evidence that socialism doesn't work.